The Chosen One. The klaxons blared through the halls of the orbital research station Helios, their shrieking mourning cutting through Dr. Lyra Bennett's concentration. She looked up from her microscope, heart pounding as red emergency lights began pulsing through her laboratory. Something had gone very wrong. All personnel, this is not a drill. Director Walsh's voice crackled over the intercom. We have an unauthorized vessel approaching. All non-essential staff proceed to emergency shelters immediately. Lyra's hands trembled as she secured her samples. After 15 years of searching for extraterrestrial life, first contact was about to happen in the worst possible way. The station shuddered, and she grabbed her desk to stay upright. The tremors grew stronger, and a deep, resonant hum filled the air. "They're docking," she whispered, unable to tear her eyes from the reinforced window. A massive ship, easily twice the size of the station, loomed outside. Its hull was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in impossible ways. The security team rushed past her lab, plasma rifles at the ready. Lyra knew she should head to the shelters, but her scientific curiosity won out. She had to see them, had to know what they were. She grabbed her tablet and followed at a distance. The docking port cycled open with a hiss of pressurized air. Through the steam emerged a towering figure that made Lyra's breath catch in her throat. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, its body covered in gleaming obsidian armor that seemed to absorb light. 4 amber eyes glowed from within a helmet adorned with sweeping, horn-like protrusions. "Hold your fire," Director Walsh commanded as more aliens emerged. "We are a peaceful research facility. State your purpose." The lead alien's helmet retracted, revealing gray-scaled skin and sharp predatory features. When it spoke, its voice resonated with harmonics that made Lyra's bones vibrate. "I am Commander Thorax of the Vextheri Empire," it announced in perfect English. "We have been watching your species. The time has come to make our presence known." Lyra edged closer, recording everything on her tablet. The alien's eyes snapped to her, and she froze. Something passed between them. A spark of recognition, of connection that defied explanation. The alien's pupils dilated, and its posture changed subtly. "This one," Thorax growled, pointing at Lyra. "She comes with us." "Absolutely not." Walsh stepped forward. "Dr. Bennett is under our protection." Thorax's laugh was like thunder. "Protection? You cannot protect her from what's coming. The Nexus Horde approaches your system, and they will destroy everything in their path. But this human," he strode toward Lyra, ignoring the security team's raised weapons. "This human is mine to protect now." Lyra should have been terrified. She should have run. Instead, she found herself standing her ground, meeting those alien eyes with a scientist's curiosity. "Why me?" "Because you are different," Thorax replied. "You have something we need, something you don't even know about yet, and I will not let the Horde take it." The security team opened fire. Plasma bolts splashed harmlessly off Thorax's armor as he moved with impossible speed, placing himself between Lyra and the weapons. His arm wrapped around her waist, and she felt energy crackle through her body. "Last chance," he growled at Walsh. "Give her to me willingly, or I take her by force. Either way, this human is now under my protection." Lyra's mind raced. The rational part of her screamed to struggle, to run. But something deeper, something she couldn't explain, told her this was right. This was meant to be. She placed her hand on Thorax's arm. "I'll go," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "But I want your word that Earth will be protected." Thorax's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. "You have it. The Vextheri Empire now stands with humanity against the Horde." He turned to Walsh. "Your species is about to be dragged into an interstellar war. Be grateful we chose to make first contact before they did." Before anyone could respond, Thorax activated something on his armor. Energy wrapped around them both, and the last thing Lyra saw was the stunned faces of her colleagues as the world dissolved into light. Her life as she knew it was over, but a new adventure was just beginning. Bonds of protection. The Vextheri warship Starweaver hummed around Lyra as she tried to keep pace with Thorax's long strides. After 3 days aboard, she still couldn't navigate the sweeping corridors with their bioorganic architecture. Everything pulsed with an inner light, as if the ship itself was alive. "Your combat training begins today," Thorax announced, leading her into a vast chamber. The ceiling stretched so high it disappeared into shadows, and the floor was covered in strange markings that shifted and changed. "The Horde will not wait for you to be ready." Lyra adjusted the fitted combat suit they'd given her. It was surprisingly comfortable, adapting to her movements like a second skin. "I'm a scientist, not a warrior. Wouldn't your time be better spent training your soldiers?" Thorax turned to face her, those amber eyes studying her with an intensity that made her skin tingle. "You still don't understand what you are, do you?" He gestured, and holographic displays materialized around them. They showed complex DNA sequences, brain wave patterns, and energy readings that Lyra recognized as her own. "Your species is young," he continued, "but some of you carry genetic markers we've only seen in the ancient races. You, Dr. Bennett, have the potential to be more than just a scientist." He drew a ceremonial blade from his armor. The metal seemed to drink in the light, leaving strange afterimages in the air. The Horde doesn't just destroy worlds. They harvest potential. They'll take you, break you, and turn you into a weapon against your own people. Lyra's throat went dry. "Is that why you claimed me? To turn me into your weapon instead?" Thorax's mandibles clicked in what she was learning to recognize as amusement. "No, I claimed you because you needed protection, and because—" he hesitated, "because something in you called to something in me. The claiming is sacred among my people. It creates a bond that cannot be broken." He tossed her the blade. She caught it instinctively, surprised by its perfect balance. "Now," he rumbled, "show me what you can do." The next hours were brutal. Thorax pushed her beyond her limits, teaching her combat forms that seemed impossible for human anatomy. Yet somehow her body adapted. Each time she fell, she got up faster. Each strike that got through her guard hurt less. It was as if something was awakening inside her, responding to the challenge. "Better," Thorax growled after she managed to land a glancing blow. "But the Horde won't fight fair." He triggered something in his armor, and suddenly there were 3 of him, surrounding her. "They'll use every advantage." Lyra's heart raced, but instead of panic, she felt a strange calm descend. Time seemed to slow. She could sense the energy patterns around each image, could tell which was real. Without thinking, she spun and struck, her blade passing through 2 holograms before catching Thorax's real armor with a ring of metal on metal. His eyes widened. "How did you?" An alarm blared through the ship, cutting him off. The chamber's walls flickered with urgent data streams. Thorax's expression hardened. "They're here, earlier than we expected." "The Horde. A scout ship, testing our defenses." He gripped her shoulders, and Lyra was struck by how gentle his touch was despite his strength. "Stay close to me. If they breach the ship, I can fight," she insisted. "No." His voice was iron. "You're not ready, and I will not lose you to them." Something in his tone made her heart skip. This wasn't just about protection anymore. The bond between them was growing stronger, changing into something neither of them fully understood. The ship shuddered as enemy fire impacted their shields. Thorax led her quickly through the corridors, heading for the command center. Crew members rushed past, preparing for battle. Through the viewing ports, Lyra caught glimpses of the Horde vessel. It was ugly, asymmetrical, like a wound in space itself. "Why didn't they attack Earth first?" she asked as they reached the bridge. Thorax's expression was grim. "Because they sensed you, just as I did. They know what you could become." He turned to his crew, barking orders in his native tongue. The ship's weapons powered up, filling the air with charged energy. Lyra watched as the battle unfolded, her scientific mind analyzing every detail. The Horde ship moved like a predator, testing weaknesses. But the Vextheri technology was superior. their tactics refined by centuries of warfare. Within minutes, the enemy vessel was reduced to drifting debris. "That was too easy," Thorax muttered. He turned to Lyra, his expression intense. "They'll send more, bigger ships, entire fleets, and they'll keep coming until they have you." "Then we better make sure I'm ready," Lyra replied, meeting his gaze. "Teach me everything. Not just fighting, but your technology, your tactics, your culture. If I'm going to be part of this war, I need to understand it all." Thorax's mandibles shifted in what she was starting to recognize as a smile. "Brave little human," he rumbled. "Perhaps I chose better than I knew." He reached out, one clawed hand gently touching her face. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow, your real training begins." As Lyra lay in her quarters that night, she could feel the ship's pulse beneath her, like a massive heartbeat. Everything she'd known, everything she'd believed about humanity's place in the universe, had changed. But when she thought of Thorax, of the way he looked at her with those ancient eyes, she felt no regret. Something was growing between them, something that transcended species and culture. She touched the combat bruises on her arms, feeling how quickly they were healing. Whatever potential Thorax saw in her, whatever power lay dormant in her genes, it was awakening, and she would need every bit of it for what was coming. Hidden strengths. 3 weeks into her training, Lyra woke screaming. Images of destruction flashed through her mind. Worlds burning, civilizations falling, and at the center of it all, a darkness that hungered. She sat up, gasping, to find her quarters bathed in an ethereal blue light emanating from her own skin. The door slid open, and Thorax rushed in, combat ready. He stopped short at the sight of her. "Your emergence," he breathed. "It's happening faster than we predicted." Lyra stared at her glowing hands. "I saw things, Thorax. Terrible things. The Horde. They're not just destroying worlds. They're consuming them." She looked up at him, tears in her eyes. "How do I make it stop?" He moved to her side, his massive frame somehow gentle as he sat beside her. "You don't stop it. You learn to control it." His amber eyes studied her with concern. "The genetic markers we found in you. They're connected to an ability we call the sight. Some of our most ancient legends speak of beings who could peer through space and time itself." The glow began to fade, but the images remained burned in her memory. "Is that why the Horde wants me? This sight?" "It's one reason," Thorax admitted, "but there's more. The sight is just the beginning. Come with me." He led her through the ship's quiet corridors to a chamber she'd never seen before. The walls were covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move on their own. At the center stood a crystal pillar that pulsed with inner light. "This is the heart of the Starweaver," Thorax explained. "It responds to psychic energy. Touch it." Lyra hesitated, then placed her hand on the crystal. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Energy surged through her body, and suddenly she could feel everything. Every crew member on the ship, every system, every particle of space around them. The crystal's light intensified, synchronizing with her own inner glow. "By the ancestors," Thorax whispered, "you're not just compatible with our technology. You're enhancing it." Lyra could barely focus through the flood of sensations. "How is this possible?" "Your species is young," Thorax said, "but your potential is ancient. Somewhere in humanity's past, you were touched by something greater. Most humans carry only traces of this gift, but you—" He gently pulled her hand away from the crystal. "You are a nexus point, a convergence of abilities that haven't been seen in millennia." The ship's alarms suddenly blared. Through her newfound awareness, Lyra felt the threat before the sensors detected it. "Multiple ships," she gasped. "Horde vessels, coming out of hyperspace." Thorax was already moving. "How many?" 7. "No, 8. The information flowed into her mind like water. "They've developed some kind of cloaking technology. I can sense them, but the ship's sensors can't." They reached the bridge at a run. The tactical display showed only empty space, but Lyra could feel the enemy vessels positioning themselves around the Starweaver. Without thinking, she placed her hands on the control interface. Energy flowed from her into the ship's systems. There, the tactical display flickered, then revealed the hidden Horde ships. The bridge crew stared at her in amazement. "Target those coordinates," Thorax commanded. The Starweaver's weapons came alive, striking the previously invisible vessels. 2 exploded immediately, but the others began a coordinated attack. The ship rocked with impacts. "Shields at 60%, an officer reported. Lyra felt every hit like a physical blow. But she also felt something else. Patterns in the enemy's movements, weaknesses in their formation. "They're trying to herd us toward that gas giant," she realized. "They have more ships waiting in its atmosphere." Thorax's mandibles clicked in appreciation. "Can you show us?" She concentrated, channeling her energy through the ship's sensors. The tactical display expanded, revealing a dozen more Horde vessels hidden in the planet's storms. "They're adapting," she warned, "learning from each encounter." "So must we," Thorax growled. He began issuing orders, orchestrating a complex battle maneuver. The Starweaver dove and rolled, its weapons finding targets that only Lyra could see. But the strain was beginning to tell. Blood trickled from her nose as she struggled to maintain the connection. "Lyra," Thorax's voice seemed distant. "Let go. You're pushing too hard." "Can't," she gasped. "They'll slip away again. We need to end this now." She pushed deeper into the ship's systems, feeling the weapons, the shields, the very fabric of space around them. Power built inside her, threatening to tear her apart. Thorax's hand closed over hers. "Not alone," he rumbled. "Never alone." Something passed between them. Strength, support, an emotion neither of them dared name. The bond they shared flared to life, and suddenly Lyra could channel the energy through both of them. The Starweaver's systems surged with unprecedented power. The battle that followed was brief but decisive. Working in perfect synchronization, Lyra's awareness guiding Thorax's tactical brilliance, they systematically destroyed the Horde fleet. When it was over, she collapsed into his arms, exhausted but alive. "You continue to surprise me, little human," Thorax said softly, carrying her to the medical bay. "But we must be careful. Your powers are growing faster than your body can adapt." Lyra managed a weak smile. "Worried about me?" "Always." His reply was solemn. "What we share, it goes beyond the claiming now. Beyond duty or protection." He hesitated. "My people will not understand." "Do you understand it?" Thorax's eyes met hers. "I understand enough to know that I will let nothing harm you. Not the Horde, not these emerging powers, not even my own people's prejudices." As the medical systems worked to stabilize her, Lyra realized that everything had changed. She wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. She was becoming something new, something that could change the course of this war. And Thorax was becoming something more than just her protector. The bond between them hummed with possibility, with danger, with promise. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The ultimate sacrifice. The Vextheri High Council chamber was silent as Thorax finished his report. Lyra stood beside him, acutely aware of the hostile stares from the assembled council members. Their disapproval radiated like physical waves against her newfound senses. "So," Supreme Commander Vexnor rumbled from his elevated position, "you not only claimed a human, but you've allowed her access to our most sacred technologies. And now you propose an alliance with Earth based on her abilities." "The evidence is undeniable," Thorax responded, his voice steady. "Dr. Bennett's powers grow daily. With her help, we've defeated Horde forces that our sensors couldn't even detect." "Or perhaps," another council member interjected, "she's leading them to us. How convenient that the Horde always seems to find her ship." Lyra felt Thorax tense beside her. Before he could respond, she stepped forward. "I understand your doubts," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Let me demonstrate." Without waiting for permission, she reached out with her mind. The chamber's crystalline technology responded instantly, coming alive with swirling patterns of light. Through her enhanced senses, she could feel every system in the massive council station, every life form, every hidden defense measure. "There are 3 Horde infiltrators in this very chamber," she announced. "One disguised as a guard by the eastern door, 2 more in the observation gallery, likely planning to assassinate the Supreme Commander." Chaos erupted. The exposed infiltrators burst into action, their forms shifting as they revealed their true nature. But Lyra was faster. Using her connection to the station's systems, she activated containment fields around each infiltrator. They were trapped in bubbles of pure energy, their weapons useless. "Impossible," Vexnor breathed. "Our security is absolute." "The Horde has evolved," Thorax said grimly. "Traditional defenses aren't enough anymore. We need her. We need Earth." Before the Council could respond, pain exploded in Lyra's head. She stumbled, blood trickling from her nose. Through their bond, she felt Thorax's immediate concern. "Something's wrong," she gasped. Images flooded her mind. Earth, burning. The Horde, launching a massive assault. They're not waiting anymore. They're attacking now. The Council chamber's emergency systems activated. Holographic displays showed hundreds of Horde ships emerging from hyperspace near Earth. But something was different about these vessels. They pulsed with a sickly energy that made Lyra's skin crawl. "Those ships," she whispered, "they're powered by people, captured psychics from other worlds, turned into living batteries." Her voice broke. "That's what they wanted me for. That's what they'll do to Earth's population if we don't stop them." Vexnor rose from his seat. "Even if we launched our entire fleet now, we wouldn't reach Earth in time. There's another way." Thorax turned to Lyra, and she could feel his fear through their bond. "The ancient texts speak of a network of quantum gates created by the same civilization that touched humanity's ancestors. With your powers, I could activate them," Lyra finished. "Create a portal directly to Earth." She could feel the potential humming through the station's crystal technology. "But the power required would kill you," Thorax growled. "No, we'll find another way." Lyra touched his arm. Through their bond, she sent waves of determination, of certainty. "There is no other way. Earth is my home, Thorax. Your people protected mine. Now it's my turn to protect them." "The claiming bond goes both ways," he argued. "If you die, then you'll have to live for both of us." She smiled sadly. "Sometimes protection means letting go." Before he could stop her, Lyra plunged her consciousness deep into the station's crystal matrix. Power surged through her body, more than any human was meant to channel. The air crackled with energy as ancient systems awakened to her call. Space itself began to tear open, creating a massive portal large enough for the Vex Theory fleet. Through the quantum gate, they could see Earth and the approaching Horde armada. "Go," Lyra commanded through gritted teeth. Blood ran freely from her eyes and nose now. "Save them." Thorax roared in anguish as his warriors rushed to their ships. The fleet moved through the portal, but he remained at her side. "I won't leave you." "Yes," she whispered, "you will. Because I claim you, Thorax of the Vex Theory. I claim your life, your strength, your future." Her skin began to glow with blinding intensity. "Live. Fight. Remember." With the last of her strength, she pushed him through the portal with a wave of psychic force. The quantum gate pulsed once, brilliantly, as the power burning through her reached critical levels. The last thing she saw was Thorax's face, twisted in grief and rage, as he led his fleet toward Earth's defense. Then everything went white. 2 worlds unite. In the void between life and death, Lyra floated. Her consciousness had scattered like stardust, spread across the quantum network she'd awakened. She existed everywhere and nowhere, caught in the space between moments. Through this strange state of being, she watched the battle for Earth unfold. The Vex Theory fleet, led by Thorax, engaged the Horde armada with devastating precision. Through the claiming bond, which somehow persisted even in her fractured state, she felt his rage, his grief, his determination to make her sacrifice mean something. But she also felt something else. The psychics trapped within the Horde ships, their spirits crying out for release. In her dispersed form, she could reach them in ways she never could have in her physical body. Set them free, she whispered across the quantum field. Break your chains. The response was immediate. Throughout the Horde fleet, the captured psychics began to awaken. Their combined power, suppressed for so long, erupted in a wave of pure energy. Horde ships began to explode from within as their living power sources turned against them. On the bridge of his flagship, Thorax felt something stir through the claiming bond. "Lyra," he whispered. "I'm here," her thoughts brushed his mind. "I'm everywhere. The quantum network, it didn't destroy me. It transformed me." Through their connection, she showed him what she had become, a being of pure energy and consciousness, existing within the ancient network that spanned the galaxy. The same network that had once touched humanity's ancestors, giving them their latent powers. "How do we bring you back?" Thorax demanded, even as he coordinated the fleet's attacks. "I don't know if you can," she admitted, "but I can still help." Using the quantum network, Lyra connected with Earth's defense systems, enhancing them as she had once enhanced the Starweaver. Humanity's weapons took on new power, guided by her expanded consciousness. The Horde ships, already crippled by their revolting power sources, began to fall. But the effort of maintaining her dispersed form was taking its toll. She could feel herself beginning to fade, losing cohesion. "Thorax," she called through their bond. "I can't hold on much longer." "No." His response was fierce. "I will not lose you again." He turned to his science officer. "The crystal matrix in my armor, can it act as a focal point?" The officer's eyes widened. "Theoretically, yes, but containing that much energy." "Do it," Thorax commanded. He reached out through their bond, offering himself as an anchor. The claiming connection between them flared to brilliant life, creating a pathway through the quantum field. Lyra felt herself being drawn along it, pulled back from the infinite expanse of the network toward a single point of crystalline light. The process was excruciating. Condensing her expanded consciousness back into physical form felt like being born again, every atom screaming as it reformed. But Thorax held on, his own life force intertwining with hers, supporting her transformation. On the bridge of the flagship, energy crackled and coalesced. The crystal matrix in Thorax's armor blazed like a newborn star. Then, with a final pulse of light, Lyra materialized in his arms. She was different. Her skin held a faint luminescence, and her eyes swirled with the same patterns seen in Vex Theory technology. But she was alive, solid, real. "Welcome back," Thorax rumbled, holding her close. Around them, the battle was ending. The remaining Horde ships fled in disarray, their living weapons now freed and turned against them. On Earth below, celebrations were beginning as humanity realized they were not alone in the universe, and not alone in the fight. "The claiming bond," Lyra murmured, touching Thorax's face. "It's stronger now. Different." "Because now we truly understand what it means," he replied. "Not possession, not just protection, but partnership, balance." The Supreme Commander's voice came through the communication system. "The Council has witnessed everything," he announced. "We would be honored to formalize an alliance with Earth, with you two as our representatives." Lyra smiled. "Two species, bridging the gap between them. It's what I always dreamed of as a scientist. And as a warrior." Thorax asked, his mandibles clicking in amusement. She stood straighter, feeling the power that now flowed naturally through her transformed body. "As a warrior, I say we hunt down every last Horde ship and free their captives. No one should be used as a living battery." "Together," he rumbled. Lyra took his hand, feeling their bond pulse with shared purpose, and something deeper, something that transcended species and space itself. Together. As the flagship descended toward Earth for humanity's first official contact with the Vex Thuri, Lyra looked out at the stars. She was no longer just a scientist, no longer just human. She had become something new, something that represented the potential of both species. And with Thorax at her side, she would help forge a future where humanity and Vex Thuri stood as equals, protecting each other, learning from each other, growing together. The claiming bond that had started as an act of protection had evolved into something far greater, a bridge between worlds, a symbol of unity, a promise of things to come. The stars seemed brighter now, full of possibility rather than threat. And somewhere out there, the Horde was running. But they would learn, as would anyone else who threatened either of their species. This human and this Vex Thuri were now one. And together, they were unstoppable.